Creating a lasting legacy through successful leadership transition. Here are the learning outcomes for this module. How to easily and properly transition organizational leaders, how to nurture rising leaders throughout the year, and we're going to talk about exploring transitional leadership consideration that will assist new officers. I want to start off with this quote, and it simply states, "Leave it better than you found it, and your legacy will always endure." I think that's the key to transition. It's trying to leave your organization in a better situation than it was when you inherited it. So why is transitioning so important? I want you to take a moment to pause the video and write down at least 3 reasons why you believe transitioning is important. Continuing on, why transitioning is important? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First, it provides for transfer of significant organizational knowledge. So nothing gets lost if you properly transition. And believe you me, most of transition really comes down to passing on the right information. It also minimizes the confusion of leadership change because you're giving them the significant organizational knowledge that they need. And it utilizes the valuable contribution of experienced leaders. So rather than leaving people to fend for themselves and sort of to figure it out for themselves, you're giving them valuable information from the previous regime. So why is transitioning important? Again, it also minimizes the loss of momentum and accomplishments of the group. And this is important simply because a lot of times you can sort of hit a stopping point when you feel like that momentum isn't there. So with the transitioning, if it's done properly, you get to continue a lot of momentum to the next year. It also provides a sense of continuity among the membership. So rather than you feeling like you have to start all over again, you're basically continuing where you left off. It also gives outgoing leaders a sense of accomplishment and closure. There's nothing worse as a leader for an organization not knowing if you really made a difference. So I think if the transition is properly, you have the opportunity to really share with people your experience, but also you get to finally close the chapter in that book. Now, how to transition new officers? Well, the first thing is you have to start early, and I don't mean early as in April. I mean, I think you should start maybe even October, November, when you begin to start having a conversation. If it's somebody that you can identify. Now, I understand some of you are going to be in Student Government Association, and some of you are going to be in other positions that require elections. So you don't really know who the next leader may be in your position. But, there are some people that you can identify, and also for the people who don't have that process, this is more so for them. So start early. Identify the leaders in your organization early in the year, as I told you before. Start giving them assignments early and just asking them questions. Encourage these potential leaders through personal contact. So, informal mentoring, just again, having those conversations about what they might want to do next. Help the new officers help develop skills. So you're giving them tasks and helping them build certain skills so that when they do finally get into position to lead, it's not something new to them. And share the rewards of leadership. So everybody wants to know what's in it for them. So you let them know and be very clear. Here are the challenges of leadership, but here are the rewards. This is how you benefit by being a leader. And I can tell you from my personal experience as a former SGA vice president, I was very well aware of what the rewards would be and even some of the challenges. But what I didn't know was that there was even more rewards that I hadn't even anticipated by being in that position. Now, when we start talking about mentoring leaders and mentoring them for transition, I think there's two different ways you can do it. You can have one-on-one preparation where you allow them to head committees. So you give them a significant task and allow them to take care of it. Always provide constructive feedback, always. Just so that it can boost their confidence, also to make sure that they're not doing it the wrong way. Ask them what their preference is. You know, if I'm mentoring you, would you prefer for me to be more hands-on or more hands-off? Everyone has a certain preference for that. And then, of course, consider what-if scenarios. And what I mean by that is a good scenario of this will be, what if two of your members on your executive board just are not getting along? They do not jive well together. What do you do in that situation? Or what happens if someone in your organization is perhaps, talking bad about the organization, or someone who is a thief? How do you deal with those scenarios? How do you even continue to build the morale of your team as the year goes on? So these are interesting scenarios, and you can think of however many you want to, but you want to provide them with certain scenarios that get them to think about what they would do in that situation before they're faced with that particular scenario. Explain opportunities, benefits, and challenges like we talked about before, and model effective leadership styles. Of course, one of the best ways for people to learn is just to observe and watch how you may handle the situation. So, and that can't be understated, because they're always going to want to know how you might handle a certain situation. As far as leadership opportunities go, you want to provide them opportunities to lead meetings. And I'm talking about maybe not the committee meetings, but maybe towards the end of the year, you give them opportunity to run a particular meeting and then provide constructive feedback of how maybe they did. I remember when I was president of Society of Future Educators, my successor, Reggie, I allowed him to run, I think, the last two meetings. It was kind of the co-thing, and then the very last meeting, he ran it all by himself. And so it was presumed that he would be the next president, and he was, but I think giving him those type of opportunities really set the tone for him, but also it got the membership ready to receive him as the leader. So that's another benefit for giving them the privilege of leading meetings. Provide opportunities to work on a big project. Again, that can be committee-based, or it can just be an initiative that they want to do, and give them full credit when they succeed on this big project. Talked about allowing them to chair committees and keep a journal. I think it's also important for the people who wish to be your successors to keep a journal from the time you're working with them to pretty much when they're about to take leadership, because it's going to allow them to see and learn and keep record of various mistakes that they may have made, and maybe some of their success, but it'll be interesting to keep a journal. Now, let's talk a little bit about group transitional ideas. I think first and foremost, you have to create an organizational structure to support leadership development. So that comes from the top down. That's never bottom up. That's a top down thing. So you have to create that type of culture that will permit people and encourage people to want to be leaders. So, doing team building activities, again, delegating properly, and listening to people's ideas. allowing them to take ownership of certain projects. We talked a little about developing a mentoring program, and your mentoring program can be as formal or as informal as you want it to be. I recommend maybe doing something a little bit more formal where perhaps you, on a certain day, you take them out to lunch or dinner and you just talk with them about what it takes to be in your situation or what their next plans are. Um, Develop leadership notebooks. And these notebooks will consist of all the information they need in order to help with their transition. And create a shadowing program. This is another great idea. So just before they take over, when it is clear that they're going to be the next in line, you allow them to shadow you and give them opportunities to ask as many questions as possible. Take a full day or maybe a full week, however you want to do it, and allow them just to shadow you. Allow them to go to the meetings that they normally wouldn't go to. Allow them to be a part of certain events that maybe they weren't a part of. But just give them a sense of what it's like to be in your shoes for a day. Continuing on, orient all of the new officers together. So one of the biggest mistakes that you can make is not allowing all the new officers to receive training or some type of transitional program together. It must all be done because so everyone's on the same page. Transfer the knowledge, information, and materials during this time, and just in general, even if you don't do it this particular event, make sure it's done well in advance. And also ask the outgoing officers what they wish someone had told them. You'll be very surprised with some of the answers that people may come up with. But I think this is a very good question to ask because I can tell you there's a lot of things I wish I would have known before I became SGA vice president. Continuing on, election of officers 1 month before them actually taking the post. This is really important. You don't want to do a late election or selection because it definitely takes away time that you can use to help develop the next leaders. I think you have to talk to them about the different traditions, ideas, projects, continuing projects, concerns, or ideas that were never implemented. So these are things that you wish you would have been able to do, but you just never got around to doing it. But also the things that you did well and some of the things that are a staple to your particular club and institution. Review, revise current constitution and bylaws to reflect changes made during your administration. So there may have been some things that you put into motion and new laws that you may have created or passed. Make sure your constitution is certainly up to date. Review job description to make sure they accurately describe the offices your organization needs and uses. So this is another critical point in that oftentimes certain student organizations depend on different offices around campus. So for example, for different events, you may utilize catering, or you may know the AV guy or girl. So these are people that you definitely need, or a person who's responsible for reserving the different space, or even some organizations off campus that generally helps with your student leaders. They need to know all of these things, and they also need to be aware of what their job description is. Not what it should be, but what it is, what the Constitution says, and what is expected of you via the students and administration. And encourage informal meetings between incoming and outgoing officers. I talked about that earlier, but having lunch and maybe breakfast or even dinner with some of the incoming folks. You want to create a transition retreat. which will include team builders, goals, expectations. Make it fun, make it light, but also make sure that the information is properly transferred at this transition retreat. You also want to review and update mailing lists or membership records. This is especially important if you are a really big organization. You want to make sure that you keep records of all your members intact so that when the new year comes about, you can still continue to market to these students and also get them involved early and often. You want to provide them files that you won't need. So, there may be some things in there that you might not have had any use for, but they will. You want to introduce incoming officers to related personnel. As I said before, you want to make sure that they know the various people, the people in catering, the people in AV people, the person that may be responsible for some type of technological stuff. Also, people who maybe professors who really are involved with the organization. And you want to reveal resources utilized. So what resources did you use this past year? And that's usually going to come in having some type of calendar that you can reveal to them that sort of took into account all the events that you were able to do while you were in power. I know this is long, guys, so let me go ahead and continue. Outgoing leadership considerations. You want to share the effective leadership qualities and skills you learn on the job. Another important point, because as you become a leader, you're going to develop certain things, and whatever you develop, you want them to certainly get it a little bit quicker than maybe you were able to. And maybe some of these qualities you can pass on them that will help them perform their job a little bit better. You want to talk about the problems and helpful ideas that helped you solve these issues. And this has to be an open and honest conversation. I don't think it's enough for you just to say to them, well, we had a great year, it was perfect. No, be honest. This is a time for you to really coach them and mentor them on where your downfalls were and how they can improve upon those things. And it's nothing to be ashamed of. Because after all, when you leave, you may come back to visit, but it's no longer in your hands, and you don't want some issue to fester over into their administration. Of course, you want to share reports containing traditions, ideas, or completed projects. As I said before. Here's what you're going to want to share with them. Some of the things: Constitution and bylaws, job descriptions, role classifications, status reports on ongoing projects. Very important: previous minutes and reports, and also the budget. And I highlight the budget because even though you may not necessarily know what exactly your budget is going to be going into the following year, they still need to have some sort of idea of how much money they will work with. One of the biggest, I think, travesties that we had during my administration, we didn't really know how much money we had. And they never were forthcoming with us, our advisor. And so it was very disappointing, and it was very difficult to do things when we really didn't know what type of money we were entitled to. Have the officers go through personal and organizational files together. I think this is important because this is a time when you can, ask some of those questions answer some of those questions that they may have that you may not be able to necessarily answer once you leave. And acquaint the new officers with physical environment, supplies, and equipment. Take them on a tour. Figure out a tour that you can put together and take them on a tour so they can get familiar with what facilities you used and where they were located. Want to wrap it up by giving you some of the key points. Again, start transitioning early. The sooner, the better. The sooner, the smoother. I think that's the best way to look at it, because if you start late, everything else is going to jeopardize a lot of other things. So start your transition as early as possible. Create a database of important information for the incoming officer. So sort of a toolkit, and have it very organized so that when the next students come in, students who of leadership come in, they know exactly where everything is, and in some cases what to do. Share ideas, areas for improvement, what you would have done differently. Now, I know that a lot of this seems as if it's common sense, but believe you me, this is not always common practice. So as a leader, it's important for you as the year moves forward to stay organized, take notes, keep files together. Um, and if you do that, I think you have a really good shot at being able to transition your incoming student leaders, because you'll have everything there. It won't be something that you have to go back and try to find. Everything will be there. And a great person, two great people that can help you with this will be a appointed historian as well as your secretary. So as the president of the organization and the treasurer, it's a president organization, I don't think it's your full responsibility to keep all the paperwork and document everything. I think that can be a shared responsibility with your executive board. And in the beginning, if you tell everyone, listen, you will be responsible for this and I will be responsible for this, I think when it all comes together, I think everyone will be satisfied with the results. And one other thing you might want to consider, maybe once a week, maybe just before an actual executive board meeting, you do sort of a check-in with folks and you gather the materials that you need. So after every meeting, you're keeping it organized that way. So that's something to consider. Action steps. So goal for your continued learning. What are 3 resources in your environment you have access to? This might be a good time to check out some of the files, maybe what leaders did before you came into office. 2 colleagues you can tap for support while striving to achieve this goal. Your current e-board as well as your advisor, I think, will be 2 great places to start. And 1 action step you can take in the next week. Well, you can decide on that, but I think making sure that you stay organized is the best action step you can take. Again, everyone, I want to say thank you for joining me for this module. I hope that it has been helpful and also inspiring, and I'll catch you in the next module. Take care. Bye.